Hey guys, welcome back to Armchair Sightseers. Today we're going to talk about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Can we play this game on some older generation hardware? In fact, mine is a Nitro 5 laptop. If you have the laptop, you see these great videos that people are doing on YouTube. Can you play the game at that level? I think you can get pretty close, but you need to find the correct combination of changing your graphics. There's so many ways to do this. Today we're going to talk about just the game and flying at the low settings and see the best flight we can get at low. And then we're going to, in the next video, we're going to do mediums, and we're going to see if what our best flight is in medium settings, and we're going to continue going down until we can find the best possible flight for our information, for what our laptop can offer us and the game and everything else, the combination of the two. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about these sliders in the game. When you go into general options, you're going to see the low end, medium, high end, ultra, and that's just a click of a button, and you're going to be changing these as we go. My computer can only go to 1080p, so that's all I can show you guys today. So I'm not messing with any of these settings underneath the low. I'm letting the computer do that. But the one thing I am messing with is the rendering resolution, which the drawings of all the individual things going on the screen, as well as right down here in traffic. I found that one of the big parameters that really changes frame rate is the fauna density, and as well as traffic. And you can see all these sliders here. So when I say 25, using 25% of traffic, I'm sliding all these up to the 25 rating on here. And my flights are all the same, letting not just the autopilot, but letting the actual co-pilot fly the whole flight. So in my prospectus, we'll talk about exterior perspective of the plane, looking kind of down. You'll get an idea, and I do every flight exactly the same. I fly it. On Fraps, all you do is hit a key. It benchmarks. That other video has how I go about getting each bit, the information from each benchmark, and then adding it to my spreadsheet. Okay, so let's get that out of the way here. So on my first set of flights, this is 28 flights total in low. On my Nitro 5, it's got an i5 9th generation GTX 1650. Very popular out there. So a lot of us are out there say, can we play this game with this laptop? And you can. I added 16 gigs of RAM. It originally came with 16, but these computers can be upgraded up to 32. And so I did that. And then the game is kept on a half a terabyte solid state drive. That tends to be a little better than having it on your C drive, which is most computers, it's kind of like your hard drive. It just loads faster and things like that. Okay, so now let's get down to this first. This is a spreadsheet that I built, and let's talk about how I have it graphed out. You do yours the way you want to do it. So the flight number, of course, and as the flight numbers go down, I add more and more from the game to make it harder on the computer. So low, which is a 25, object on the game is a 25, rendering at the lowest you can do is 30%, fauna 0, traffic 0, clear day, preset weather, and nothing live, external view of the plane, graphics used. So what I did basically is add these numbers together to get kind of a score overall. And I put in my own, actually. I put in for if it's stormy or things like that. Even on preset, I give it a score of 25. Live, I give it 25 extra points. AI 25, so on. Players 25. And then so I came up with this score. So in my own way of doing this, it goes from about 0 to 900. So I wanted a percentage of that if 900 being the total of everything maxed out on all you can do on the computer, what percentage of that 900 am I using in my flight? That was important to me because we want to get the most bang for the buck. Yeah, I can fly at 100 average 97 frames per second, but is it going to be looking nice? So I take this number and divide it by 900, gives me a percentage of the 900 of a maximum score of what I'm using for the computer. And so like this represents 11.11% of what I'm using, what the game is offering me. That's how much I'm using of the game. And we're going to see these numbers rise quite a bit later on. And then I give it a score, which is basically going to be your frames per second. And we'll talk about how I come up with this scoring, because I also give it a handicap of the average and low percent ratio. And this 1% right here, this 1% low, is after I take my frames from Fraps. Watch the video; it explains it in detail. This number represents your possible rate of stutter. Like if I have a high rate of right here of 103, and then a low frame at 84 frames per second on that frame, or that second of measurement, there's quite a bit of a stretch here of a margin that makes this number right here, the ratio, about 90%. You want this to be high as possible, because if you're flying along at 100 and you come across a couple of seconds of 80 frames per second, it's a little bit of a shudder. You might be able to tell that with your eyes, depending on you. But if you're flying around at 45 and you have a low frame rate of a couple seconds of 30, let's say, that's going to break up your flight. Sometimes that's okay if you only have a couple of those, but for a lot of us, we want nice, smooth gameplay. Now, if you're a sightseer like I am a lot of the times, and you're just flying and you want to take pictures of certain areas or things, or get the drone out and fly that around in the game, you can go maximum, right? Just slide them all up there, because the gameplay does not apply. You're aiming the camera, you're doing some effects, taking a picture. So keep that in mind. You can still do that all the time with a cheap computer. But if you want smooth gameplay, you want your traffic on the freeways, you want other planes flying around, and you want your buddies flying with you too, then we're gonna talk about that as well. You're gonna want smooth gameplay. So, and this is the scoring set. The location this is all West Texas flights. This is the exact same flight, and I'll play the exact benchmarking flight at the end of the video, so you can see the actual 2 minutes of exactly the same flight. And then I mix in some different flights every once in a while to get an idea. As you can see right here, you'll see an O, that's for Orlando, and then at 10,000 feet right here, this is Orlando. Flying over Orlando at 10,000 feet cruising, because sometimes cruising you can get higher frame rates because you're above a lot of the stuff that the computer's trying to render. And as you can see on this flight, number 15, I have about 33% of the computer, the game being used, and as you can see, I'm getting an average of 59.72 of that. That's a level flight. That's perfectly okay with me. Might not be for you, but that for me, it's okay. So let's talk about the numbers here. Now that you've watched the video on how to get your 1% low, you can fill in this gap. And if you don't want to, you can just leave this, because Fraps will give you the high, low, the average. But I don't like shuttering, right? So that's why I added that into this. So let's get to the graph here. As you can see right here, everything cranked down to the minimums. Okay, I was getting an average of 69 frames per second. Okay, well, I'm starting off and thinking, hey, I can play this. 69 frames per second, I can play this. And then I started going down and adding stuff. So I added up to 50%. This is kind of color coded in, so you can kind of get an idea visually. I added a little bit of rendering. I added some fauna. I added 25 traffic. And then down here on flight 7, I even added some live weather. Look at this. I'm getting an average of 92 now. So it makes me think that the computer is trying too hard to dumb it down for the display. I don't know. Maybe you guys could put it in the comment section, but I found that very surprising. I obviously thought if I dumbed down everything, I would get the highest frames. Not necessarily. So don't be so quick just to think like, oh, my lowest settings will give me the highest frame rate. Because it looks like right in here, I'm using about 20% of the game, and I'm getting 92 right here, 92 average. So keep that in mind. So as I went down, basically I flew every flight, just added this information in as I went, and then I sorted, like you can do with Excel, and to see what my best scoring flight was. So for this setup right here with this Nitro 5, I was getting this flight number 17, which is right here, 100% rendering, 50% fauna, 50% traffic, clear day. This was live weather, but it just happened to be clear. Same flight, like I said before. I'm using about a little over 30% of the game's power. You could say a very good percentage on my ratio from 1% lows. I was flying at 72 frames per second. I am happy as can be at 72 frames per second playing this huge game on this little budget laptop, $600. So right away, we're good. I can do it on low settings. Now, can we do it on medium settings? Let's see, because that's going to be the next video. We're going to do these same flights in medium, we're going to do the same flights in hard, and we're going to do the same flights in ultra. I'm not holding out for ultra. I can tell you right now, one of these last flights down here, still on low settings, but right down here we're using about 61% basically of what the game has to offer. At 61%, we're really moving the rendering up to 200, and I think this has something to do with the VR. Once you get past 100, we're going to deep dive into that. But still, right here, flight 21, I'm 100% rendering, 50% fauna, 100% of the traffic, all the sliders in the traffic, boats, name it, freeways are full of cars. And this flight happened to be at night, live weather. I was still getting a 55 average. Not a very good 1% low ratio, but flying at 55K may be doable for some of you. This scored is about my 10th best flight. My highest flight down here, my top 10 flight, actually was this one right here, which was 150 rendering, 100%, 75 on the fauna, traffic at 100, clear weather, not live, using about 41% of the game, a very good ratio here, averaging just about 40 frames per second. That's getting pretty close. This actually flight was not bad. As you can see, my low was 38, my high was 41. That was a pretty smooth flight, actually very smooth flight, and I was really cutting into the game. Now we're at 4. This is probably a really good looking flight, but the frame rates are getting kind of close, right, to that. You want to keep above 30 and you want it smooth. I would be ideal with that. Now some of you are going to talk about V scaling and stuff like that. I've tried that and actually mapped that out, and even some of the flights where I was averaging 70 before, I ran it with the V scaling, and it didn't hold at 60. In fact, it was less than that. It was smoother, but it was not. I would think that it would be at 60 the whole way through, but it was not. It was I saw not the greatest numbers, but of course we'll add some of those flights in here as well later on. So anyway, guys, this is the end of the low settings. I'll leave this on here. You guys can take a screenshot. We're going into more detail. Be sure to watch the video on 1% low. That is becoming a very big factor in a lot of people, how they are mapping out or benchmarking games. You're going to see it now. You know what it means when you watch that video. It basically, all it is taking all your frames, your data points. You're going to sort them from smallest to largest. You're going to take 12 of those frames, because I did 120 seconds, so I'll have 120 data points. I've taken the slowest 12, averaged them, posted it in here, and for my own use. And it's interesting to see. Now I could do all these flights over again. The numbers might be just a little off here and there because of all kinds of things in Flight Simulator, your broadband connection, everything else, but generally these are going to be pretty close. Now as you can see right here, flight 17 was my best flight, as we talked about before. With all these parameters set, I was getting a 72. I was very happy with that. So after you get all this stuff done in your Excel spreadsheet, you can always go down here and you can graph it. And as you can see right here, flight 17 is all above 60, and these numbers, this is high, average, 1% low, and low, and all above 60, very close together. Something like this would not work for me because it's flying at a pretty good rate, 75, but as you can see the low was way down here at 56. There's a lot of shuddering going on. This is I graph it to make it look better. Some of the harder flights down here, as you can see, these are very close together, which is be great, but we want something like this that is above a 60. This is the closest I could come right here is this flight number 17. So as we look up here at flight 17, there's my parameters. I'll leave this on here, guys, so you can take a screenshot. So next video, we're going to do medium. So stay tuned.
Sierra Golf Sierra Alpha is at 4,200 feet, climbing 9,000 feet.